Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I am here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
And today we are talking about our favorite African-American superheroes. And then we will talk about what is quite possibly the greatest parody of DC of all time. Like, legit, when Brit was showing me this, I'm like, all right, I'm in. Hey, what's up, Randy? What's up, Cameron? So let's get started. We're not gonna tell you what it is yet because it's better if we wait until you actually see it for yourself and the computer's giving me issues again. God damn it! I can't have 1 week where the thing goes off without a hitch, huh? Presenter view. Dang it! This thing won't work. Anyway, but so it involves one of the most important developments for comic books, what I would argue in terms of representation, was the creation of Milestone Comics, because that was created for the express purpose, because what had happened is a bunch of creators were like, there are no I guess black characters that are not looked down upon, if you will. But there you go, I got it working. And it was the idea that they want to be part of the conversation, at least according to that amazing DC documentary, which, by the way, again, is one of the greatest things of DC that they've ever made. So you get Milestone Comics, and what Milestone Comics essentially is that it was comics by African Americans. And what's really cool about this, and I'll bring this up later, so it was started by Dwayne McDuffie, accomplished comic book writer. Like, he actually wrote one of my favorite runs on Justice League ever, which is hilarious because he was the chief creative force behind Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, including the Wonder Bat stuff. So I'm like, I ignore that because his comic run was legit solid. And you have Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, a bunch of other great comic book creators, including Christopher Priest. And it was created because the idea that you didn't have minorities that were respectfully depicted. Obviously they existed in the comics, but they weren't shown the level of respect they deserved. So then you get the reason why they did it right is that instead of race bending characters or straight up just copying them, they created their own original ideas that contributed and gave black fans their own look up to. And what's really dope is Kirby goes, I didn't even read the title. I just saw Storm and Cyborg and got confused. That's the DC that's the DC Marvel crossover we all want. But what's cool about this is that, yeah, they have characters that are, Icon is pretty obviously a Superman variant in a way, but it's different enough that it's its own original character. And that's what I think a lot of media gets wrong nowadays, is that particularly with the Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman movie that was supposed to come out, he was very clear. It's basically Black Clark Kent in the 1930s. And I'm like, you literally have Black characters that would work better for, like Icon, like Calvin Ellis, like Val Zod. But you just decide, I'm just going to race bend Clark Kent. What?
Right. You want these characters to have a uniqueness to them and have the story that resonates, with that certain group. You can't have what was it, Marvel's Thor? Was it Spider Miles Morales and Thor combination?
I remember that. But when he calls me owner and it's got graffiti on it, and then his battle cry is "By Odin's Fade," and I'm like, what?
Right. It's honestly, when you try to have that sort of, when you have a writer that isn't understanding of the certain group ethnicity, and they try to step in the shoes, and you go through stereotypes, and it can be very offensive.
Yeah.
Even Yara,
Mhm.
she, as a Brazilian Wonder Woman, the way she was written in Future State, it was very offensive. Because you're just going through the very surface level stereotypes and things that people want to. Um, that's not what that ethnicity or that race is about. And
Yeah,
for to
exactly.
emphasize those types of like I said, stereotypes is very regressive, you
Well,
know.
it's like when you have to a degree, I get I understand a little better now why some fans only want women to write Wonder Woman, because when you look at like Tom
Tom
King,
King.
but by the way, I learned something is that Tom King has said that like he just has a bunch of these story ideas saved to his computer and he just plugs in any character to them. In other words, it's not like he
Oh
has a character.
geez.
It's not like he has a storyline that fits like Supergirl or Wonder Woman. He just says, "Okay, a drunk girl goes on a pirate ship. Okay, they want me to write a Supergirl story. Click, plug in and play. The Secret King of America is rounding up people. Wonder Woman.
And that is the wrong like way of thinking that things with these characters. You can't have the character used for the plot. The plot is supposed to be for the character.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, a lot of Tom King's stories, it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't sit right. Even
Yeah,
with Superman, I mean, he goes basic with Superman. There's very
there was a
superficial,
lot more
very
editorial control over that Superman book.
probably so. But anything else, he got an editor fired for Batman. But you have Batman, suicidal. He only cares for Selena. You have Diana, who's crying over the American
American
flag.
flag,
You
which has
have
no
her,
attachment to it beyond the fact that her costume is vaguely reminiscent of the American flag.
right? You have her just overly obsessed with Steve, just out of nowhere. That whole thing, and it's like this is not the character.
By the
You
way,
know,
my comment on his Instagram post is still up.
really.
Yeah,
So
I'm deter. I think I'm gonna get blocked by him soon. But what's kind of funny is that someone also added another comment. Would you like me to read it to you?
yes.
Someone put down, first off, they brought in the hashtags and then goes, it would be nice only if you were really devoted in writing Diana properly. But he's not. King is really not. He's just devoted to writing the stories that he wants to write, regardless of the characters. Hey, what's up, John? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is the reason why I am offloading every Tom King comic book I own. Legit, I've committed to this. I packed up all my stuff. I got the clearance from the comic book store I'm going to go to that they accept recent stuff, so I could legit just offload my Wonder Woman stuff. Only thing is, my last pull is the one for this month, and I'm not going to screw my comic book store by having them order a book for me, and I'm not going to pick it up. So that'll be the one issue I own. It's issue 18. That'll be the one issue I own because
Well,
I love my comic book store.
right. I mean, well, probably in a few months you can resell it, but I
But
mean,
my point is, for this time, I'm not going to screw them and say I don't want that anymore.
right. I mean, comics in the current, of
Mm-hmm.
whatever DC is trying to do. I just think that the writers right now, they don't really have motivation. And with okay, first of all, Tom King, he already said, he had no intentions on writing Diana, like her solo, even when it very much feels like that, even when he tries to have her in other books like Heroes in Crisis or the plagiarizing of Immortal Beloved for Batman, you know, he doesn't really know these characters. And that really says um, how lazy he is and how egotistical he is
Tom
because
King, lazy and egotistical. What?
right, because trying to basically one up, you know, the golden standard of Perez for Wonder Woman, that was already DOA for King, you know, and the fact that he continues to fumble and he doesn't take the criticism of the fans. It's just I want to have Diana um with this Chucky baby because I'm jealous of
Chucky.
Damien and
Trinity
yeah,
runs at the Sovereign with a knife.
you know, I mean, because she does look like a little brat. She really does, or a Cabbage Patch Baby, whichever you
Hmm.
want. Um, but you want her because first of all, the royalty checks or whatever. If she even continues on, then the fact that he admitted it in interviews that he felt jealous that Morrison created Damien or made, Damien as popular as he is. John, I would say that John leeches off of Damien. I wouldn't say he was actually popular. He only had like the cute anime type thing going on,
Well,
and they
again,
really
John, the reason why Damien stuck around is because it's it's very hard for a character associated with Batman to flop.
but you had Robin, like Batman and Robin is the combination. So whether it's the adopted, Grayson, Tim, Jason, or it is a biological son of Bruce, it's still a Robin. So that works. But Superboy, having Clark having a son, you would think that that is a far distant, future type story. And Diana, for sure, because motherhood takes work, takes time. You have to put things to the side, and that's basically what we're seeing with Diana is that there is a war going on. There's um, you have this king of America that's corrupting things underground. Then you have Amazons imprisoned and killed, but you drop all that, you know, as Wonder Woman. You drop that and you go crafting a statue, a very bland statue at
It's just
that.
him standing there at attention, and I'm like,
Yeah,
what? You could, and it's yeah, well again because King is not creative, so there is that. We just showed he's not creative. He just plugs in any story in there. But anyway, but back to this.
right,
So the thing about this is that these characters became like mass hits because you even had the Static Shock cartoon show, which was actually
right.
in continuity briefly with the DCAU. In fact, the Justice League show up in like that episode. Oops, sorry, I zoomed in by accident. All right, so which that was my exposure to Static Shock and all that was from that. In fact, actually, I believe someone put in here. Yes, Kirby says Young Justice introduced him to Icon because Icon and Rocket and Static are actually in the Young Justice cartoon as well as like prominent characters,
Right.
which that works if you're going to mainstreamize these characters. So what Brit and I are going to do is we have a list of our top black superheroes, and I've added in some surprises because we did DC. I also want to do some Marvel ones, so I included some Marvel characters. So we'll
That's nice.
go
Okay.
through this. Yes. Oh, we're going to be talking about that,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
so good. I'm just going to tell you this right now. I want this animated series so badly.
Oh
When
my
Brit
God.
showed that to me, because she was because the way it normally works with us, I'm going to give you guys a little behind the scenes look. She sends me like some topics that we can cover. So throughout the week, we'll like shoot back and forth topics that we could do. So Brit sends me one day Trill League, and I'm like, what is Trill League? Again, I thought it was a typo of something, and then she tells me what it is, sends me some screenshots, and I'm like, I want this book so badly. This is the coolest DC parody I have ever seen. More on that later, because trust me, we are going to talk in length about that. So, the first one. So, Brit, what's one of my favorite DC parts of comics?
The Lantern Corps.
John Stewart, baby. Yes. My first Green Lantern, because I started on the cartoon. Now, okay, John Stewart was a former United States Marine and architect. And what's kind of cool, actually, in Jeff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver's Green Lantern Origin, they had a segment where the Human Lanterns in Kilowog are battling battling essentially Parallax, the fear entity. And what's cool, what Jeff does is each lantern's like constructs are described because they're each very different. Like Guy Gardner is more of like a flamethrower because he's very hot-headed. John Stewart, when you see his construct, it's very precise. You can see he's got it's essentially like he's creating a building because he's an architect. And the other thing that this builds into, what's really cool about John, is that they allowed him to make mistakes, because here's what happened. One day, John is doing Green Lantern stuff. He's supposed to save a planet. Now, through a mistake of his, the planet explodes. And the guilt of that weighs in on John for like a long time. In fact, in Blackest Night, he has to fight the Black Lantern versions of everyone on that planet that died. And eventually he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to be defined by my mistakes. And I'm like, yes, this guy is dope. And then you also have the DCAU, which they briefly did that. The problem with the DCAU, what I didn't like, is that they tried to, and TJ, we will educate you on that, trust me. So they tried to this was one of the moments of the Justice League show that broke me. So you know how Hawkman and Hawkgirl have that whole reincarnation thing, right?
Right.
They made it so John Stewart is part of that. Like, he was the general of Hawkman and Hawkgirl's army on Earth when they were ruling Egypt, and he was having an affair with Hawkgirl.
Yeah, that was going too far, because you can have certain iterations, but to have like this scandalous affair type thing, it just, especially on a kids cartoon, that was just too much,
But
and
mhm.
I mean, first you're basically just you're tainting, the Hawks, their whole
Yes.
dynamic.
Well, that's beyond. Well, remember, that was the same episode where they made Hawkman a stalker. But even beyond
Right.
that, but there was this great moment on the first arc. After the first arc of Justice League, was the second arc after the League is established. They do this arc for John. That is the whole, he makes a mistake and a planet blows up. In this, they make it where it was a hologram that was blown up. But in this, there's this great scene at the end of the episode. So the Manhunters, aka the robots that police the universe before they went crazy, killed everyone in Sector 666 and inadvertently created the Red Lantern Corps. It's a long story. They get into the central power battery and drain it of all of its power, meaning no lanterns have power in their rings. The Guardians say all is lost, and then John goes, not while I'm still standing. He whips out the ring and belts and starts with the core in Brightest Day and Blackest Night, no evil shall escape my sight, and recharges the ring and like saves everyone. And it's one of the most epic moments it's one of the most epic times they've ever used that oath. Ever.
Wow. I really like, the more you talk about the lanterns, it's just kind of like they
You
have
gotta
so much
read Green
more.
Lantern.
I know they just have so much more depth. Like, over time, of course, like I said, you will have creatives that do surface level, But it seems that, you know, these characters still, whether you read back issues or even now, like with even How to, that they have far much more richer story going on than like Superman and Wonder Woman, currently.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Eh,
now I
it's-
see why the Lanterns pretty much like booted Superman out of, you know, um, being top two for DC within the 2010s or
well, you also had Jeff Johns that was writing the entire thing for so
right.
long.
So yeah, I can definitely see why Batman and Green Lantern were DC's top two for that time.
But here's how special John Stewart is. So you know those 80-year trades I have for like Wonder Woman and Batman? They made one for John Stewart himself, which includes his first appearance and all that stuff. He was actually one of the first black superheroes that didn't have the word black in his superhero name. Like you had Black Lightning, Black Panther, Luke Cage. They
Right.
kind of didn't have that, but it was still like in DC. It was the first time a superhero didn't have black in the superhero name.
Well, Vixen too.
Oh yeah, that too. Well, I don't think Vixen was a character then, but the other thing that's really cool about him, but it's kind of funny because of that cartoon, I thought he was the only Green Lantern. So when I'm reading a comic and Hal shows up, I'm like, who the hell is this white guy? I'm like, where's Sean? And I'm like, oh, there's multiples. You should have seen my confusion. But yeah, and by Cameron says John Stewart is the GOAT. Yeah, there are so many people that are like, the debate normally is who's your favorite Green Lantern. It's normally a three-way tie between Hal, Kyle, and John.
Right. I mean, with that, you would like for, if you are doing other iterations with the cartoons and stuff, at least kind of not confuse people who want to get into comics, but it was still good that John has, had that popularity and that representation.
Yeah.
Is DCAU the best iteration? No, not in that sense of
particularly if you're a Wonder Woman fan.
right, and not so much as the affair, plot line and Shira, and even with Vixen too, that just was messy. That was just too messy. However, for that representation still and making John a, predominant character for DC just overall. And now we have him more in other iterations, adaptations. Yeah, you do have James Gunn, DCU, but I mean, it's still that representation that is good.
Yeah, which I'm fine with John Stewart getting more like push because he's a fantastic character. The other thing that I like about John, whenever they have adapted him, because here's my biggest problem with when they bring characters for representation, they make their quality that like makes him a minority, like John be a black guy. They make that all the character is. Where with John, it's not. He just has regular Green Lantern adventures. Sometimes in the comics they'll deal with race, but they don't make it all that character is, because that's what I find when it gets really freaking annoying. Like there's one character on this list, on my Marvel list, that they did that, particularly in the movies, and I'm like, well, that's kind of what? Because I understand that that's going to be a component of the character, and I respect that. It's just the problem when that becomes all the character is used to talk about.
Right.
Because there's so many other great characters. And then you have Joe Mullen. She's like a relatively new thing. And it's kind of funny. I just read her series called Far Sector. And it's the idea that, so they put her in like a faraway sector of the galaxy. And she was like solving a murder on this planet. The problem with Joe is that she suffered from that. I hesitate to use this term, but you'll understand what I mean by this in a second. The Tom King effect. What I mean by that is that she's invented, and then instantly people are like, she's the greatest detective in the entire Green Lantern Corps.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
It's
I'm like, no. I'm like, other characters are better. Luckily, they since dropped that. And when I read Joe in other Green Lantern books, she's actually not that bad of a character at all.
right. When you are promoting a new character, they will, go with the exaggeration of this is the best, this is the greatest. But once, all of that settle down and I guess start interacting with other characters, it's like, yeah, that is something that you have to, like I said, simmer down a little bit. But yeah, I think it was in DC Power that
Mm-hmm.
she had a mission with John, and their interaction was pretty good.
Yep.
So if she is to be adapted, whether it's animation or live action, I think her and John, if they are to do that, um, you know, I would like to see that team up.
Here's the thing. Green Lantern is one of those properties where I'm like, they should just do it animation because that way you don't have to worry about it being too expensive to do a space adventure. Because with that stupid Lantern show, my problem is they're like, okay, so Britt, one of the complaints that everyone had about the Green Lantern movie was that it took place too much on Earth for Green Lanterns. And then literally, what does the show do?
Right, it is on Earth.
I'm like, what?
It's kind of like they have, from the latest updates of it, it's like they have a lot of these superheroes or,
And it's very
super
grounded
beings,
because that's what we want in a show about stops.
right? But they are in like this supernatural type town. Everyone,
But that's
but
not Green Lantern. They don't deal with super. Make it a Justice League Dark show if you want that.
right. I mean, it would make sense if the supernatural town or whatever would be in
Oh,
space, like some type
you know
of
what this just realized, Britt? This makes sense if you consider the fact that Tom King just has stories on his computer and he just plugs in characters.
yeah, that's true.
That
That's
that
true.
would actually make sense. My next character, Static Shock, who again, the great thing about Static and John is that they had the advantage of the being in cartoons. Because when you're in cartoons, people and people grow up with you, you become like even more immortalized. What's kind of cool about the Static cartoons that they dealt with race and stuff. See, the way that most shows did it back then, which is superior to the way it's doing now, is that they don't point out one group of people and say you're the problem. It's just these characters just want to exist. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's like, yeah, you can point out toxic and racist behavior in the show, but the problem is with like modern media, they go a little too hard with that sledgehammer to the head, if that makes sense.
Right. I mean, it is good to explore or,
Of course.
like I would say, uh, put forth,
Mm-hmm.
some topics. Yeah, of course, because you want that type of educational thing. It's not just if it's not so much as an adult cartoon, but it is something like a preteen, teen
Mm-hmm.
type cartoon. So you have teenagers that should be more aware of things, and that is something that you implement in cartoons for kids to be more aware of the world. However, there are some things that, like you said, is either beaten over the head or it's not executed properly, and then you end up with children, being influenced the wrong way. So I would
Exactly.
say that Static, from it was actually a clip that was being that went viral on Twitter last week, and that was a clip that was very well executed,
Mm-hmm.
and it did explore, the harshness of you know racial discrimination and everything like that. But it is something that was important, and they, like I
Yeah.
said, they did execute it properly, and it's something that it resonates and
Yeah.
it creates conversation, the right type of conversation. And
Well,
that's what we need more of.
even on that, if I'm watching the show and I don't know about all this stuff because my upbringing is different from like a black person watching the show, you educate me, and all of a sudden I'm more aware of this stuff too. So that's why it's important to not like bash people over the head, because because when you bash people over the head of it, you know what that does? It closes their ears to it. And if you do it in a way where they want to listen, then people learn. And this is how you get rid of racism. It's really that. It's honestly that simple. That's what you need to do, is do it in a way where it doesn't, like with this, exactly like with this. Now, there was so Milestone shut down for a while, and then it came back in 2020. It didn't come back the best. Here's why. So Static traditionally his powers, like a power from like being exposed to experimental chemical during a gang conflict. What they did it here is that he was exposed to this chemical at a BLM rally. And I'm like, I get that you want to be topical to what's going on nowadays, particularly back then. But when you do that, you date the superhero.
Yeah, that I would say that again, it's about the execution.
Yeah.
And, when you want to enforce real world events, within comics. Again, it's about the execution, and you don't want to just have it like that the focal point. You want to have something more generalized, again, so you can have that type of respectful conversation, because once you put it in a focalized point of, just this one topic, it disregards everything else. So you want to just that wasn't exactly the best way to go. The whole game thing, of showing how obviously gangs are wrong and is something that's very dangerous, that is more generalized and everyone can understand that. But having the focal point of at that time of how the awareness of BLM was, and how now in the real world how basically that organization isn't even the best for itself.
That's my point, because if you throw all of your stuff behind a real life political organization, and then it later comes out some stuff about that political organization, what does that make your superhero look like?
Right. So you don't want to just completely associate yourself too much with something so concrete.
Well, even beyond that, it's like someone at that time period that's like, I just want to forget about the real world and read my comics. You see that, and that's the first thing you see, and I'm like, by the way, here's the perfect example of when to do. Here's this comic book has always been my go-to when it comes to doing representation and otherism in comics. Uncanny X-Men. That's it. Because you know what this does, Brit? This makes it so they treat, because despite what because current day Marvel writers and fans try to say that like the X-Men are only supposed to represent like gay people and like one thing. But even Chris Claremont is like, yes, that's a component of it, but first off, it should be just like good superhero stories. But the reason why the X-Men works, because they make it so if you ever feel othered in any way, whether or not you're just a conservative on a liberal campus or vice versa, if you're an Asian person, if you're a black person, it doesn't matter. If you feel othered in any way, these are the heroes for you.
Exactly.
That's why this works.
It's supposed to, right. It is supposed to have like this general, anyone can feel represented.
Exactly.
And that is also something that we talk about just period on the show is diversity, in a way that with Superman and Wonder Woman, they still represent everyone, regardless, as immigrants, as outsiders of society, what the expectations, the acceptance and everything like that. they still have that representation. And so
Yeah,
with these characters as um black predominant, black characters, and being pushed as predominant and important, they have the representation of, you know, the black reader, but
yeah.
also showing the awareness for any other ethnicity of a reader.
Yeah, it's like with Jon Stewart. I never saw him as like the Black Green Lantern. I just saw him. Oh, it's Green Lantern. What's up, bro?
Right.
I didn't care. And now it, I understand it means something different to see like a black guy as a prominent Green Lantern to like a black person. And I respect that 100%. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, it's like, okay, it's a Green Lantern. Plus, it's like, see, here's the thing. It's like, I felt represented by Jon Stewart because, yeah, I've made mistakes and I've had to deal with them, just like John did with that whole story about him blowing up a planet. So that's why sometimes I push back on the whole they have to look like me in order for me to like identify with them mindset. Because yes, I understand that's important to some people. It's just, to me, I mean, let me put it this way, Brit, who's my number one favorite superhero?
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a woman, so it's like, so I'm like, okay. So it's like, you can still like have supers that don't look like you and still like represent them. Now, again, I don't want to be taken out of context. I get that,
Yeah.
it's important to a lot of people, and you know what? I respect that. It's just, for me, I'm like, like this way, it's not as much of a priority for me as it may be for like other people, and I don't want to come off as like dismissive at all.
Oh no, that's not what you're saying.
Mhm.
Basically, what you're saying is we have the representation, but
Yeah,
at the same time, just in general, these characters do resonate with everyone. That is
yeah,
how they are supposed to be written, and it just feels inclusive.
yeah,
That's what you want. You
yeah.
want to be included, and just everyone. It's not gonna happen, but to have that um respect, and just everyone, they won't do the kumbaya type thing, but you still want that type of feeling for all fans.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing about comic books, and this is one of the reasons why I love the medium, is that no matter if like you're different from me or I'm different from you, this is a cheat sheet to get people to talk to each other. It's like, oh my, it's like, you love Superman, I love Superman. Do we have to become best friends? That's what
Right,
that turns in.
right,
Brit and I met because we love SuperWonder, and that's it. And it's like, okay, fine. Yeah, we may be different people, but hey, we have this massive thing in common. And look what that turned into.
right.
But
Exactly.
the next superhero, another one that was in Young Justice and got a big push, Black Lightning. And he even has his own book right now. And the cool part about this is that even in Young Justice, he was like one of the leaders of the team.
Which is pretty good. He's also in McDuffie's JLA run.
Yes, he
So he
was,
has,
exactly.
yeah, he's had a lot of push through,
I believe in the McDuffie slash Meltzer, because it was Brian Meltzer that put him on the league. I think he was the bodyguard to the president, as a matter of fact.
oh, now that's even more um interesting for the character. And
Yeah,
but yeah, he also had a successful, I would say it was pretty successful for CW standards,
still
but
have to
it
watch it. That's the one CW show I haven't watched yet.
right. And I mean, it lasted 4 seasons. It actually did better than, with the premiere, I believe, with for did better than Superman and Lois. So there um so yeah, it when it was canceled, that was the first time I really took note of how popular the show was, and the character became, because of the fan outcry for the show to
Yeah,
continue on.
because that was the first CW show where I heard universally people saying it was good.
Yeah, and it was also about family, you know, and it was it in I believe I've mentioned his two daughters
Mm-hmm.
too. So it's a family legacy thing, and it's just very wholesome.
I may actually add his book to my pull list because I do dig this character a lot. And the thing again that I like about him is that he has that leadership, that like burden of leadership that he always goes into without fail. And I'm like, dude, that takes bravery, because when you're in a leadership position, I mean, even with me, technically I'm in that we're at this channel to a smaller level, but there's a lot of pressure that comes with being a leader, trust me. And it's like, when someone he instantly always steps up, and that's always been something that I've always admired about him as a character. In fact, I believe he led the Justice League in Young Justice, the show. Like they elected him as the leader.
Well, that's really good. I might honestly, I would have to watch it.
Well, actually, you know, it's kind of funny. Brit and I have talked about doing an episode on Young Justice, because not only the Superman Wonder Woman stuff, but also Superboy and McGann, the Superman and Wonder Woman adjacent characters of the team. So I'm like, there's something that we could do. There's something. So then we get to Cyborg. Again, another character that's in Young Justice, but also had the benefit of like the Teen Titans animated show, and then was featured in a movie. And you know, it's kind of funny when you watch the Snyder Cut, it's also majorly a Cyborg movie.
Right. I really like Vic, you know, being the technical character.
Mm-hmm.
I like that he had this very emotional background,
Mm-hmm.
and that he represented, you know, a multitude of things. And he wasn't just like, you know, when you watch Teen Titans or Teen Titans Go, playful, you know, this jokester with Beast Boy. But when you see him in Zack Snyder's Justice League, or even Justice League War, or New 52 Justice League Origins, what else? Doom Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those iterations of Cyborg really have this very serious, you know, character arc, and it's really compelling.
Yeah, and one of the things about the Snyder Cut that's interesting about this is that wrote Cyborg's like family life and story alongside Chris Terrio, because Terrio was like, I wanted it to be like, for lack of a better term, authentic, and he said it would come across as not like preachy if you do this. And that's why if you like see like Vector Stone, his mom is like a prominent doctor, his father is like obviously the scientist. And what's cool about it, you look at Vic's arc. So the thing about this movie is that it started off where his father never came to any of his games because he was busy at the lab. Obviously, there was the car accident that killed his mom and him, and he all that was left of Cyborg was like his torso, one like stump of an arm, and his head. And the father was like, I'm not going to let you, I wasn't there for you, I'm not going to let you die. So he rebuilt it with the Apocalypse tech. But then Cyborg was like, you've made me less of a man, I'm a cyborg now. So when you see Cyborg's like story in the Snyder Cut, specifically a lot of like self-acceptance and like dealing with essentially self-acceptance. And it's like, what's interesting about this, like, the culminating part of this story is like, so Cyborg's role in the team. It's the other part that's like the best part of the Snyder Cut, is that everyone gets a job to do instead of just standing around like idiots. I'm looking at you, he who must not be named, but also directed the Avengers. So he plugs into the mother boxes, and they give him like a hallucination. That's basically his father, who dies in the movie, his mother, and him as a human non-cyborg, and goes, "Hey, Vic, we can be together again if you just stop this. We can make you whole again." And then Vic just goes, "I'm not broken, and I'm not alone." Which is like, that's the culminating moment when he decides, okay, you know what? This is the way I am. I'm going to use this to help people. And I'm not alone because I got the Justice League behind me.
Yeah.
And people say the Snyder Cut is a bad movie. Again, but it's like it. And that's the other thing about Cyborg. It's like he's one of those characters where, if done right, he does. I know some people have issues with him being on the Justice League, but the way I kind of see it, it's like, well, let me put it this way: he worked specifically for the new 52 League because everyone else was much younger as well. So he kind of fit there.
Right, it worked, but like I said, it's also the technical part of, and really showing how he is a technical genius. You can have Mr. Terrific or, but for that sort of plot to connect with Apocalypse and stuff like that, and the fact that he knew about the motherboards, he was having visions, and all of that worked for that specific plot. So
the man hacked into the Bat computer.
Right. Anyone who you can have different iterations of these characters, and as long as it makes sense, and like you just pointed out, everyone else was younger. So Vic, he worked for specifically the New 52 iteration.
And even with the Snyder Cut, they put him on the League because that's what the comics were reflecting at the time. And the thing about it gives a little bit more of a youthful energy because even Barry Allen was younger in the Snyderverse. So it's like you kind of have a little bit more of like interaction with him. There's this great line where, by the way, the Snyder Cut is the first time they refer to Diana as Wonder Woman. So they're digging up Superman's grave to revive him. And Flash goes, "You think she'd ever go for a younger guy?" And then Cyborg goes, "She's 5,000 years old, Barry. Every guy is a younger guy."
Oh, right.
Which I know we don't like it when Diana's old, but I really like that joke.
Yeah, Diana being older than dinosaurs is not my thing. But
I think that's an exaggeration.
They do write her like that. So
yeah, they do.
Yeah, but for that moment, that was funny.
And they even have it where, to recruit Cyborg to the League, Diana's the one that goes to meet Cyborg. And she basically is encouraging him and saying, "Hey, listen, these are gifts. You could see them as like a handicap. It doesn't matter. But these are gifts, and you can use these to help people." And slowly, actually, Victor helps her also open up because Diana is still kind of closed off because kind of what happened to Steve, but not really. It's a lot of other stuff. It's like this way: Snyder did not make her dependent on Steve like Wonder Woman 1984 did. Literally, by the way, the only Steve reference in the Snyder Cut, as opposed to the Whedon Cut, is she sees the dropship and goes, "I once knew a man who would love to fly it." And then later on, she's like, "I lost someone I loved once, and it took me a century to open up again, and I'm still working on it." That's it.
I still, even if that was just
I know, but still, it's just I prefer that over the whole Bruce going, "Did Steve Trevor tell you that?"
Yeah, that is it's the lesser of the two evils, of actually the three evils, but just the whole thing of Diana's still her main, conflict of whatever she was going through with humanity and stuff like that, it still boiled down to Steve. And I just know.
Not necessarily. Not in the Snyder Cut, I will tell you that. Because the whole thing about the Snyder Cut is all the superheroes don't want to come out because there's no like beacon to show them, hey, it's okay to come out, because it's the real world. That's what would happen if like these people had powers and they lived among us. Where when Superman shows up, that's when all the different superheroes feel more empowered to like, hey, here's our beacon. They accept him. Maybe we can like come out. And again, by the way, we will be covering the DCEU later in the month, but I'm going to give you this preview. This is how great the DCEU is, Brit. They have the greatest bit of setup and payoff ever. When Jor-El first meets Cal in Man of Steel, he goes, they will stumble, they will fall, but they will join you in the sun. You will help them accomplish wonders. Literally, the first scene with the Justice League, when they're standing on top of that, nuclear silo, the sun is behind them. So literally, they are joining him in the sun. So it's like
full circle.
Yeah, full circle. That's the thing about Zach. He sets up stuff in one movie and will instantly pay it off in like a future movie in a way that I'm like, literally, it's like to the point where whenever I see that scene, I hear Jor-El in my head saying that, and I can't wait for you to see that, Brit. But it's one of those things where, but anyway, going back to this, it is kind of cool, and now it's kind of interesting. If Cyborg had gotten his movie and everything, because he was supposed to get a movie after the Snyder Cut, if the Snyder Cut had come out and done well, and then he got his own movie, he would have been the first black superhero with a mainstream movie. It would have been Cyborg.
The lineup that they had. Now, it's kind of interesting, comparing the DCEU lineup with now the DCU lineup.
Say what you want about the DCEU. The first three movies were Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Well, Suicide Squad, and then Wonder Woman. But she got her own thing.
Right. Instead of waiting like maybe 5 years or so for a TV show or a cable show.
Where she's only going to show up in like probably the last episode.
Yeah.
It's dumb. But anyway, next superhero, Vixen. So her powers is that she can mimic any animal around her. And actually, in the McDuffie JLA run, her powers got kind of wonky, and then it turns out she could like imitate the powers of the superheroes around her. So
really?
they kind of played off a little bit of that. And yes, as you put in there, she got her own animated CW Seed series that they turned into a movie, which I saw, and it's freaking dope. And then she was actually a really important character on the Legend of Tomorrow. Obviously, she was in like the Justice League show, but they kind of made her kind of mean in that.
In
DCAU, which that's like most of the female characters in that show.
Yeah. Well, you just summed it up. It's most of the female characters. They didn't even get along with each other. You didn't really feel the sisterhood, that you feel in comics, especially with even, Diana and Hawkgirl, and Shayera. It just felt like...
Well, Diana always hated everyone in that thing. Remember when she gets angry at those bank robbers because she was having a day off, and before you say it was because of that armor, they established you have to be in proximity to the armor for it to happen. So I'm like, that's the problem with Wonder Woman in that show. She was way too angry. There's no way Diana would hold a grudge that long.
Right. Well, that's Bruce Timm for you.
Case in point, when, yes, she voted to expel Batman from the Justice League after Tower of Babel. Another reason why Wonder Bat will never happen and never work, because she literally voted to kick him off the Justice League because he kept contingency plans. But anyway, she still maintains a loose friendship with him despite that. So she's not... With the Shayera thing in the show, it's like Flash had to trick them to get them to talk to each other. And I'm like... But anyway, with Vixen, and then my problem with the DCAU, and I got light pushback on this when I said this last show. I said I didn't like how like they were constantly like pressing these girls against walls and floors so their boobs were flattened and stuff, and I'm like, It gets distracting after a while where I'm like, okay, we get it. Or like when Black Canary is sparring with Oliver Queen and she takes off the jacket and they make sure to have her jut her chest out.
Yeah, they had an issue with that, but that is, of course, is Bruce Timm's from, I guess, well, it was artwork that went around of his. Yeah, he's very
Oh yeah.
yeah, and also Batman and Harley Quinn. That
Oh yeah,
movie says
yeah.
a lot.
With Nightwing being seduced by Harley Quinn.
That, but they also go to something like equivalent to Hooters or something.
Yes, where it's
So
like all of the waitresses are dressed up like superheroes, like Supergirl. Yeah, yeah, Superman's teenage cousin.
yeah, so it's not very
That's the other
kid
problem I have with
friendly.
the DCAU and why I'm like it should never be used as like the primary source. Anyway, Vixen the comics is actually really cool. And what's kind of nice is that in the Meltzer and then later McDuffie run, when they're forming the Justice League and they're voting for who's going to lead the team, so she's getting into a limo and she says, "Yeah, put me down as voting for Black Canary." This nice little girl comes up to her and goes, "You're my favorite Justice Leaguer."
Aw,
I'm like, oh, I like that. That's a cool one. And again, she's a great character. Here's the thing: all these characters are awesome when they're treated with respect, which I know DC treating characters with respect is like pulling teeth. Oh my god!
right.
So then we get Batwing, who's basically Iron Man, but Batman. Now it's kind of interesting. Remember in Future State when they were going to have a black Batman?
Right.
So here's the thing. This is who everyone thought that was going to be. But
Yeah,
literally made up a brother.
yeah, the whole twist of it being Jace, it just seemed like a waste of time, and it's the character. I don't, uh, I don't know. It didn't seem like he had much depth, and they tried to make him work, especially within Future State, and just make that whole group that they were trying to make it to the Justice League. It right now it just seemed like he didn't have a character,
He doesn't.
and
He is the example I use that when a character doesn't work, DC will ignore they ever existed. Which again, as soon as King leaves Wonder Woman, if Trinity doesn't work, they will ignore that she ever existed. They won't even go to the effort of retconning her out. They will just pretend like she never existed.
which we are totally fine with
I'm
that.
fine with that. As long as she's gone. I don't care how you do it. I would prefer to have that statue gone as well. That would be the first thing I would do. I would retcon that Diana finds out that Steve actually gave like the Axe forces the locations of some Amazons to protect Diana, and those Amazons end up getting killed, just so I could have Diana walk into that studio and punch that statue to gravel.
Yeah, it has to be something because other
That
than
would be
that,
my
it doesn't
first
make
thing. That's
sense.
like, hey, Tom King, I'm flipping you the bird. What? How many fingers am I holding up, dude? I'm doing
That is
this.
funny.
I'm doing the thing. Yeah, that'll be the first thing where I'm like, it's not going to be the. It's kind of funny. If I were being interviewed for my Wonder Woman run, and like CBR asked me, so what do you plan on doing with Wonder Woman's daughter? I go, what daughter?
Yeah, that's
End
all of
question.
us.
That's all I would do. But anyway, so with Jace, he's a really dope character, and the thing about him, again, see, here's the
Jace or Luke?
sorry. See, I'm getting confused. Now, here's why Jace works and Luke. Here's why Luke works, but Jace doesn't. You know what they did with Jace? They literally just made him Black Batman. With Luke, they gave him something unique and made him like really cool. Like he's got the suit of armor. He's like Iron Man, but with a bat theme. And he even has his own like stuff. He even dated Batgirl. He has his own stuff. Where with Jace, it's just he's Black Batman. That's all they try to say. Oh, he's the Batman of New York. How did that work for you?
Yeah, that's
They didn't even give him that much of a unique costume. Yes, it had the face shield at first, but then they took that away. And I'm like, you're just making him a black clone of Batman.
Yeah, I think Future State,
By the way, his debut issue, do you know who wrote it?
Who?
That's the guy, John Ridley, who had Superman get violated in a prison.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Again, I remember because this was in the early days of Comics League, back when it was just under two capes, and I was covering as an episode fandom because that's when they revealed it. And the way he was describing it, I was like, okay, cool, you're doing that. I can't remember exactly, but I do remember he emphasized the race part a lot, and that should have been my first concern, because the minute when the creators emphasize the race too much in the marketing, then I start to get suspicious that you don't really have an idea. It's just Black Batman, and I'm like, I was proven right, Brit. I was proven right. We have a fantastic character who if you want to go with a Black Batman that organically will work and the fans will embrace it, Luke Fox. It's like when they said they wanted to make a black Superman movie, but Ta-Nehisi Coates is like, yeah, it's gonna be a black Clark Kent instead of Icon, instead of Calvin Ellis or Val Zod. When Oprah asked Michael B. Jordan if he would ever consider playing a black Superman, he legit said, no, I could just play Calvin Ellis. With Calvin Ellis, and we'll talk about him later, President of the United States. Why wouldn't you want to give this character more feature?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
He's Superman and he's POTUS. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone would jump on that concept for sure.
Exactly. So next one Second Son Batman, if I speak in issue, I was excited, but yeah, exactly, it wasn't that good. So anyway, so then we get Icon, and what's very cool about Icon was one of the original Milestone Comics characters, and yes, he's Superman but he's not. Again, this is one of the reasons why I said the Milestone characters were representation done right, because yes, you can tell he's inspired by Superman, but he's not a ripoff of Superman. That's the key part here. They even had it where he came to Earth. He crash landed to Earth in the 1800s. And I'm like, and he's 1800s America, Brit, and he still wants to be a superhero and save us.
Right. Of course, because Superman was the first quote unquote hero, they are going to be inspired by him in some type of way. However, what makes them stand out is, putting them in different settings and backgrounds and, just things like that. And yeah, in the 1800s, you definitely question, how Icon, he would definitely be traumatized and,
Believe in that. Why does Icon want to save America after that?
Right, that
1800s America. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it is again, it's all about execution.
Yeah.
And if you can give, a compelling story within that, then we would have our answer of why he would still want to be a hero of America.
Exactly.
Despite being in the 1800s.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a dope character. Another character in See, this is what I loved about Young Justice. Even though I had some issues with the show, they also featured a lot of the Milestone characters, like Icon, where he was even in the first episode. He went to the same high school as the kids. He would show up in Superman t-shirts and stuff, and then he ended up in the Justice League. And same with Rocket. She would end up being on the League themselves. And so she is Icon's sidekick, essentially her Robin, and then essentially she's a badass. She even got her own arc in the last season of Injustice, where she actually had to team up with Orion of the New Gods, and she at first wasn't sure if she could trust him because he was the son of Darkseid. but then she actually learned to like trust him and say, no, this guy's actually trying to do good.
Yeah, see, very good storytelling.
Exactly. Then you get Mr. Terrific, one of the smartest DC characters of all time, and deserves it. And another character that Tom King has destroyed, because he wrote him when he wrote the Adam Strange book, and he made it so basically the way the dialogue went, Brit. Oh my God. Are you ready to cringe?
No, not really, but
All right. So if I remember correctly, he had. So I believe at one point, Mr. Terrific, one of Master Terrific's kid, like died, and somehow I forget exactly how. But then Tom King has Mr. Terrific that, in a way, he's relieved that the kid died because he's not sure he was ready to be a father.
wait a minute. Really? Why?
Because he's Tom King. That's why.
Oh my gosh.
This is why I'm getting rid of all of my books.
And didn't he wanted Adam Strange's wife to want to have an affair or something?
He wanted to, like this way, he clearly wanted to write Adam Strange's wife instead of Adam Strange because she was the focus of that book.
You know, he's always focusing on the love interests of the main character and making the love interest kind of like insufferable and, just this obsession. And it's very unappealing. But
But when he does this to characters that are so important, which is why I honestly hope he never writes any of these characters' solo books, because oh God, can you imagine Tom King trying to make a comment on race relations?
well, he will have John Stewart in the Green Lantern show have an
Oh
affair with
no!
with
Why must you keep reminding me of the fact
I'm
that he
sorry.
show?
Yeah,
See, this is the thing. I was so excited when they said they were doing a Green Lantern show. I even ignored the whole taking place on Earth, and then they said Tom King's involved.
yeah, with Jon Stewart's first, appearance, live action, being in having an affair, yeah, it's very
Anyway, then we get Bumblebee. No, not the Transformer. The DC Comics character, and so she's basically another Atom. That's interesting.
She has had multiple iterations, within cartoons and being on the Titans. It seems that they're trying to bring her back to be, but as they have the Fab Five of the Titans, and then they have, the original Titans and everything like that. But it seems like she's becoming a little bit more important with her own story. I'm kind of confused on why they don't use her, much anymore, or stopped, because now it's just, Donna Troy, it's Roy, Garth,
And
Grayson, and Wally.
overly nostalgic creators, Brit. And by the way, see, TJ, I would love to talk about so many other different characters, but we don't want this podcast to be 5 hours long.
And it's already going to be probably about 4 with Trill League.
So, but anyway, yeah, again, another character in Young Justice. They had so many Milestone characters in this show. Well, when you think about it, they had the prime Milestone characters, so there's like a ton here that they did. So Brit, so we did DC characters, but Marvel characters. Marvel also has like great African American characters. So I figured, considering the fact that you reference Storm every single episode, it's either Storm or Beyonce. Those are the two things she references every single damn episode.
I do.
Which is fine. But I figured, hey, and also Sam's getting his own movie.
Right.
Now, this is the one thing. So they showed Sam becoming Captain America in the show Falcon the Winter Soldier, which, except for one episode, which I'm going to talk about that, was pretty good. Here's the issue. They have a scene where he's in an urban neighborhood, and he and Bucky are walking down the street. Then they get accosted by the cops. It's the stereotypical, the cops will stop any black man because he's black, but they won't like stop like Bucky. The problem is they forget they forget who he is. It's like, I'm like, Sam is an Avenger. His face has been on the screen many times. What are you talking? How does this not work?
Yeah, it was definitely a political statement that...
That's the type when they're hitting you over the head with it, and I'm like, what the hell, man?
Right. I mean, again, it's all about execution. You can have something like that no matter if you are an Avenger, there are some people who still feel that hate, in a sense, or, being judgmental. That is something, of course,
Yeah, you're going to have that. But their reasoning was they didn't recognize him.
That is something that's kind of like, okay, no, don't.
The way I would have done it, Brit, if you still wanted to do that, have it where it's just another kid that's being accosted by the cops and Sam intervenes. Then you could still have that message and have it be way more organic than it was in that scene.
Right.
But no. But anyway, so then you have Bishop, who's like a significant member of the X-Men, time-traveling badass that carries around huge guns. And then you also have like Miles Morales, who's big now because of the movies. Luke Cage, who has his own show. Riri Williams Ironheart. So you know what's kind of funny about her? And she's this character here. So she was created by He Who Must Not Be Named, but also had a crappy Superman run. I have to have all these fandoms now. So I don't know if He Who Must Not Be Named knew this. The Ironheart name existed before. Do you know what it was?
You said that.
It's the Japanese adult parody of Iron Man. I'm like, sweet Jesus, did you know, bro?
I don't think so, but yeah, I think someone in editorial, they could have like did a little bit of research, just to make sure, when you give these characters names, you want to make sure it's not associated with anything, especially with marketing and searching it, like Trinity, Lizzie, when you're Googling Trinity, DC Comics, who comes up? Superman, Wonder Woman.
I think that was a Tom King invention of a name, because when he went on Comic Pop to talk about coming on the book, before issue 1 came out, he talked about how they hadn't had a superhero name for her yet.
So you named her Trinity. I mean, that is so
stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, editorial and the writer should definitely do research before they, establish names.
Or actually laugh the creative like Tom King out of the office and said, "Come back when you have a real name."
Right.
That won't confuse our already existing fan base, because we've done Trinity books in the past.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then we also have some. By the way, so Storm, invented by Chris Claremont. That's why that run on X-Men is so great. And he had her do like, and she was actually, I think, the first black woman to lead a superhero team, because she was the leader of the X-Men.
Yeah, I'm really, um, I like the Storm book, the current one.
Hmm.
I see the controversy around it, with Wolverine and everything like that.
Oh God, I
However,
hate that pairing.
everything else seems pretty good so far. I think there is issues of her being within the Avengers.
Yep,
I
she
think.
she she is on the Avengers currently. Thor was framed for murder, so he left and she took his place because Thor basically says the Avengers should have a god on the team.
Oh, well, I mean, at least he thought highly of her,
Yep.
as in X-Men 97, that
Oh,
scene, her
even in
introduction to
What
him.
If, where she's the goddess of thunder with Mjolnir.
Yeah, they Marvel has started to, of course, stumble. They stumble a lot, I see. But so far, I would say Storm has much better, showing than Wonder Woman right now.
Which is why get the Storm a creative team on Wonder Woman. We're good to go. Yes, the pairing is Wolverine and Storm. I hate it. I prefer Storm and Black Panther, particularly after listening to my friend here. So many books and pairings Brit has turned me on to. So there you go.
Aw,
So for honorable matches with DC, because there's so many great ones, Martian Manhunter, by the way, because when he turns into his human form, he's a black guy.
that's right. Well, when I kind of thought of that, but then I was like, we've seen him with like different, disguises.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, which is his more prominent one? And like absolute Martian Manhunter, he's a white guy. So it's kind of like,
It
you know,
vacillates, but
right,
most of the time when he's in human form, he's a black guy. Even in the Snyderverse and in the CW, he's a black guy.
right.
And obviously, Nubia. I mean, Wonder Woman fans, we can't not bring
Talk
up
about
Nubia,
Nubia.
who, by the way,
Yes.
she was Wonder Woman when they locked Injustice Wonder Woman in the Themyscira. I think they may have killed her or like had Diana killed Nubia, but that's just
Injustice is,
injustice. It's so
yeah.
stupid. And see, here's the funny thing about Kid Flash Wallace West. They got into that situation because New 52 happened, and originally Wallace was just race bent Wally. But then the Wally fans were like, why did you take away redheaded Wally West that everyone likes? So they were like, oh no, he's just Iris's cousin or brother or
Cousin.
cousin that she never mentioned before, but she exists. So we don't have to get rid of him and be seen as race washing.
Right. That was interesting, but you have Wally and then you have to name him Wallace West. That was, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, he's still a cool character, but I'm like, all right. And then you have Aqualad, the leader of. See, here's the thing about it. In Young Justice, Aqualad is the leader of the Young Justice team, and then he's the leader of the Justice League. I'm like, that's the part where I'm like, why? That that it of all the characters that could be leaders of the Justice League, you pick Aqualad. Well, he at that point he had become Aquaman, and then DC Comics did this stupid thing where Brit, as you've known me for like 4 or 5 years now. Wow, time flies. One of my pet peeves of comics is when they have characters share mantles. They even did a book called The Aquamen.
Right.
And I'm like, this is the stupidest thing in the world because particularly this is post the Momoa movie coming out. And I'm like, when people think of Aquaman, they think of Arthur Curry. They Jackson Hyde. I'm sorry. That's just the way it works. When they think of Superman, here's a better example. When they think of Batman, they don't think of Jace Fox. That's just,
Yeah.
you can't have sharing mantles. You could have him take over the mantle for like a short time, like in Future State, but you can't do the whole. We're gonna have multiple Superman and Batman and stuff.
Yeah, they definitely wanted to, especially with 5G, um, they wanted the mantle sharing or to have this new generation of Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Aquaman, Flash, and they were supposed to be um, you know, iteration of those characters, and it didn't work. So when the DO was fired, and all of that, 5G was I mean, they basically threw away everything for 5G, and they didn't have anything else lined up as a backup plan. So they had to um, salvage whatever they could. And, like, I guess whoever was trying to steer the boat, they thought that, okay, well, we'll try to have them mantle share until basically that flopped. And now we don't see much of Jackson anymore. John is whatever. Yara,
Jax, I can confirm because I've read the new book. He's not he's not anywhere to be seen.
yeah, I think he was only on like the covers, but he hasn't actually been, featured in the books. Um, like I said, John is whatever with Secret Six, trying to find him a place. And then Yara, she's being terribly written by Tom King. Um, And Andy is still like a 2-year-old after 5 years. Aquaman's daughter, who is supposed to be the same age or closer to John and Yara. And yeah, it's pretty much a mess with 5G.
He wasn't. So hang on, I have the issue, so I'm gonna check to make sure. By the way, Aquaman by Jeremy Adams. By the way, guess what I learned, Brit? So you know how like I talk about how awesome Jeremy Adams is, and he's the one that's currently doing Green Lantern. He
Right.
wants to write Wonder Woman. He says he has a Wonder Woman story, but DC won't let him. This Brit, trust me when I say he would actually write a good Wonder Woman book. This is the writer to call when you want to write a good book. This guy, if this guy says he loves Wonder Woman and wants to write, he is the only other writer that I've heard wanted to write Wonder Woman is like Perez and Rocca. He is at that level.
I wonder what his story, kind of the plot, or could he give like a hint of what he would,
Okay.
explore?
Jackson Hyde is briefly in the Aquaman book, briefly, but the focus is very much on Arthur. But yes, TJ has how many characters has Tom King ruined? Practically 100% of the characters he writes. Yeah. I think that's an all-encompassing like listing. So then, did you guys know there's an entire Earth called Earth 23 where except for Batman, interestingly enough. By the way, real quick, there's one more character I want to talk about. John Henry Iron Steel. So he was one of those characters that was inspired by Superman's sacrifice, and he was the only one during the reign of Superman that wasn't telling people that he is Superman. He's just like, I'm trying to honor his. And it's like, by the way, I think I have his first appearance issue.
Really?
I think I do. I have to check, but I'm fairly certain I do. Because what had happened was, so Superman died. And at the time, there was like 4 Superman books going. There was like an Action Comics, Superman, Adventure, and Man of Steel. He was the focus of the Man of Steel because each of those 4 books were then taken over by the 4 people: Eradicator, Cyborg, Superman, him, and Connor. But so I think I have that first issue. But the cool thing about him is that he's just a dude in a suit trying to help people. And then he runs his own company, Steelworks. And in fact, he actually got his own book written by Michael Dorn of Star Trek. And it is so good. He's actually the guy that's going to marry Lana Lang.
Right. They are having them married. I can't believe that is going to be like or they think that that's going to be DC's big storyline, though.
I'm
Like,
telling you, Brit, if they would just hook on their balls and publish The Wedding of Superman and Wonder Woman.
that would
You
honestly,
cannot tell me that would not sell.
it would definitely sell.
You cannot tell me that book would flop. You cannot tell me that.
Oh no, it definitely will sell gangbusters, and we'll have folks flipping the tables and everything like that, and
Not
it
buying
would
the
be.
book.
No, they would definitely buy the book out of sheer curiosity and everything like
And the
that.
need to be relevant, most likely.
Right. And then they will, as Williamson said, people will hate buy, for some reason. They crave controversy and everything like that. So it's definitely going to be something like that. Whether you love it or hate it, it's going to be bought.
Exactly. And by the way, so Signal, who is this dude in the yellow bat suit, he's a character invented by Scott Snyder. He's one of the only members of the Bat family that actually has powers. I think he basically just glows in the dark. Like he emits a light, and he's one of those characters that like people acknowledge he exists, but no one uses him unless Scott Snyder's writing the book, because there's nothing you could really do with him. I mean, his origin story is that his parents were victims of the Joker, so took him in. That's literally practically every member of the Bat family.
Right. I know that Wayne Family Adventures, it first started as his perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and then within like I think after the first issue, it veered off, and I don't think Duke really is, prominent as he was at first. Yeah, so they really don't know what to do with his character unless it's like you said, Scott Snyder.
Yeah, it's definitely that. Which that's another occasion of like, let's put it this way: Trinity won't show up unless Tom King is writing the book. That I'm going to make that prediction. Which, as soon as he leaves the main Wonder Woman book, I don't think they'll have him on the book again. Anyway, Earth 23, which is okay, except for Batman. Interestingly enough, this is a character where all of the superheroes are African American. Then we meet Calvin Ellis, President of the United States, and Superman. According to Grant Morrison, based on Obama.
Right. Which is very interesting. I mean, again, who wouldn't want to adapt Calvin? Being the president, having that something that is exploring, like we said, a multitude of very hard topics, but again, as the president, that is something that really elevates his character and just makes it more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of cool seeing all this and seeing because I would love to see a movie. How does the president keep the secret that he's Superman, or does he not keep the secret? Anyway,
I don't think he has the secret that he's Superman. I don't think.
Well, then again, here's the thing: who's going to try and assassinate the president? That's a Kryptonian. That's like a really stupid idea. I mean,
right.
Good luck. That's what I would do if I were Calvin. I would say, if you're gonna try to assassinate me, I just have two words for you: good luck. But again, why, if you're trying to like give black people a hero to look up to and like see themselves in, why wouldn't you want someone that's not only the most powerful superhero, the ideal of the superhero community, he's also the president of the United States?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? I'm like, it doesn't. That's why when they said Black Superman movie, it was kind of funny, Brit. No one wants that. No one wants the movie that they proposed with J.J. Abrams and Ta-Nehisi Coates, because they're like, okay, it's gonna be Black Clark Kent in the 30s. You have Calvin or even Val frickin' Zod, the Black Superman from Earth 2. Why won't you just do that? So instead of, because here's the thing. Instead of, it's an insult to these fantastic characters that you won't, that instead of using them, you're just going to race bend another character because you don't think they're worth it.
Yeah. And honestly, again, marketing wise, that would sell.
The president of the United States? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. But WB executives or whoever,
They're lazy.
yeah, definitely lazy and very short-sighted.
Well, it's like, and even I think it was Mark Waid who said this, and when I say this, this will make sense. It's either Mark Waid or Dan Slott. They said the reason why they have to race bend characters is because they basically said that like making new characters is hard and the fans could reject them. And I go, hey, buddy, the fans are rejecting your race bending too, so you might as well try the other way, which has more of a guarantee of actually creating characters people like. I mean, Milestone proved that this could work.
Yeah, it's just pure laziness.
That's what that's why I'm against. That's why I'm also against changing the sexuality of characters, because I'm like, when you have like Midnighter and Apollo, Joe Mullins, there's plenty of other great characters that you could tell these stories with, but you're not going to do that because you're like, but it's not this character, it's not this character. And I'm like, then make your own characters. Again, Milestone proved that you could do that. Anyway, so then tell us about Earth 23 Wonder Woman.
Okay, so Earth 23 Wonder Woman is Nubia.
All right.
She's well, with Earth 23, they don't have, well, as far as the Justice League, they don't really have like a specific leader. So I guess depending on the mission, that is who takes lead. So, but you mostly will see her with what we were given is that she is paired with Calvin. And of course, to show that of any iteration, Superman and Wonder Woman are going to be paired. She is very much in that instead of the Greek style, Diana is in, or mainline Nubia, she's more of, I would say, Storm in a sense. She is very much rooted in the African influence, and she's more they do have that commonness of being the strategist, and she's more have that princessy type you know attitude. But yeah, she still has her own way about herself other than Diana.
And by the way, how do I know you wrote these notes? Beyonce reference.
Okay, no, that was Grant Morrison.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry then. Okay, can you blame me for getting confused by that, bro, Brit?
Grant Morrison, in his interview, he not only is Calvin for the 2014 iterations of Earth 23, not only is Calvin inspired by Barack Obama, they did mention Beyonce as the inspiration for Earth 23 Nubia for that time.
Oh, okay then. Well, can you blame for getting confused though, because you bring her into like literally everything?
However, you see how the influence still is from Wonder Woman, or it's just that connection.
In your defense, Beyonce does reference Wonder Woman a lot, so there you go.
Yes, and she even wanted to play her in 2008. So yeah, it's all connected.
If you were a better actress, I could see that happening though. That's the thing, because I've seen her in movies that, like, I think she was in the Pink Panther movie, and even then I was like,
yeah, the Pink Panther, voice actress for The Lion King, and Obsessed. I think the best movie, and Dreamgirls, but that was kind of like a musical, things like that. She can definitely do that. But a serious role or action role, it would take some time.
Yeah. But anyway, so then we get to Brit. I was reading this comic, by the way. So this is taking place in the continuity of the DCAU.
Right.
The Justice League go to Earth D. Literally, he meets. So Clark meets the Superman of this Earth. Superman, this Superman runs to Wonder Woman, his Wonder Woman, and goes, Unati. Okay, and then she goes, husband, and kisses. And I love Clark's reaction. He goes, well, that's unexpected.
And there was another page, but it seemed with that page, it was very awkward because Clark is so kind of like when he reunites with his Diana and she sees, Earth D, Superman and Wonder Woman interact. It's how her face is kind of drawn. It's a little awkward, but cringy type thing. And it gives a very negative vibe. But yeah, it's just to see this sort of like way that there is different iterations, and the dimensions, the earths and everything, and the timelines to have Superman and Wonder Woman, especially a black version of Superman and Wonder Woman, married and very much in love. And you see this sort of thing that, again, no matter what dimension or earth, Superman and Wonder Woman will have that sort of bond as friends, as just partners, or they are happily married.
Did you know there's also a Earth in this book where Wonder Woman married Darkseid?
Yeah, I was kind of like, okay, so she cringes. What's weird is that she's kind of like being awkward about, Earth D, Superman and Wonder Woman, but yet she's like trying to honor Darkseid. I would think she
I'm
would
like,
have like this
what?
nightmare icky type feel for Darkseid than,
One
but
of the
it's
variant covers is literally her kissing Darkseid.
yeah, but that was James Tucker, so yeah.
So by the way, but I found the scene. So they're on the time ship, and Wonder Woman meets Superman. He's recounting the whole story, and he goes, "And then we came for you." Then Wonder Woman goes, "But how'd you find me?" And he goes, "The Manhunter somehow has sensed you. He just knew." And then Wonder Woman goes, "Well, I'm glad he." And then they see the Superman and Wonder Woman that are married, and he goes, "Did?" And then Superman goes, "A little awkward, isn't it? Knowing that in another universe, we're married." They're married, and then Wonder Woman kind of like goes, so back to the task at hand.
Yeah, I don't know. And especially of course, you do have the Wonder Bat fans who pretty much praise that to think that, Diana is rejecting that sort of thing. And I'm kind of like, well, she was rejected by Batman, so it's not really, a win there.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
to have still, if you wanted to throw in as James Tucker, it feels like he needs to have like a jab thrown at Superman and Wonder Woman. You still have a very successful married version here that's, so that's not
Or
really a
how about a
jab.
very successful married version that's literally in what's known as the best DC story of all time, Kingdom Come?
Yeah, that too. Um,
So, so all right, we're finally at it, Britt. We are finally at what is quite possibly there have been parodies of the DC universe before. The Boys, Invincible. None have been this. And let me tell you, when Brit showed me all this stuff, I was legit like, what? So Brit, what's Trill League?
okay, so the Trill League, this is
This
so
is
funny.
so great.
The Trill League is a graphic novel created by Anthony Piper. Is blending in uh, the superheroes with hip hop culture. and very much the African American, experience of, just if you watch the Boondocks, if you know about, hip hop culture, if you know about reality TV and seeing things like that. Um, and it's very humorous. It's just something that you shouldn't take serious. If you listen to black comedians and, like Martin Lawrence, I, Will Smith isn't so much as a comedian, but, have that sort of thing. You have,
Well, ain't that a slap in the face? I'm sorry, I had to. You mentioned Will Smith. I just
oh
had
my
to.
God.
I had to.
Well,
I
you
had
might as
to.
well,
That was
you might
low
as well,
hanging fruit, Brit.
yeah, well, you might as well bring up Chris Rock. Um, you know, things like that. So that is what this is, and it it became such a viral thing, especially with the Wonder Woman character Wandisha. The the artwork that it got picked up to become animated by
Please,
rapper
please
50 Cent.
do. Please do. I want this so badly.
Yeah, and at that time, this is a couple of years after the Boondocks um ended, so it felt like something that is reminiscent to that.
So, so Brit, real quick, what does trill mean?
It means being real is basically.
Okay, I have to ask because you explained it to me. It's just I want to make sure my audience knows what this.
Yeah, it's basically being real.
Okay, cool. I like that. So concepts and themes. Oh my god, this is so good. I've never laughed so hard making PowerPoints in a good way. I want to be clear on that in a good way.
Right. Okay. So with these concepts, it's basically taking DC's heroes and villains and making them into these hilariously exaggerated, African American stereotypes. And it's such a it's it feels very unique, and it's something that again you just really can help but to laugh at, and it's not in an offensive way.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it's. I'm sorry. It's. I'm getting flashbacks to all the stuff that you told me about that. But it's like, yeah. So a lot of the stuff, I definitely really dig. Like, I can tell why you like the Wonder Woman character, Brit, because she's a mix of Wonder Woman and Beyonce.
And
Hmm.
also, from now, this was created, I would say, let's see, 2014. So come, 10 years later, I would say she's really Megan Thee Stallion. She has that. So it's not so much as Beyonce anymore, you know. So if they are to have the animated um adaptation, yeah, she would definitely be the voice of Wandisha.
God damn. This is just so good. I freaking love this so much. When I was going through this, I'm like, oh, this is great. So yeah, it's basically it's the Urban Justice League. Is basically
Yeah, yeah.
what it is. It's like, all right. So the Robin character's name is Sparrow. I'm going to go through these names real quick. So the Batman character's name is Black Wayne, and I'm like, oh, okay. I see where you're going with this.
If you are to listen to Terrence Howard, the actor, the way he says Maine, so black Maine instead of
Oh, Black
black
Mane.
man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Y is basically Maine, but it's
Okay. You know what's kind of
supposed to
funny?
be
The image is far away on my screen, so
yeah,
I thought the M was a W.
a
That's why I
W
said Wayne. All right, there you go. So and then Superman is Swall Main, so basically Swall Man.
from Swolton.
All right, Wandisha and Tanta, which is basically Shazam. Oh wow. Here's the thing. Here's why this is so genius. He makes it in your face that you know what he's parodying, but he does it in such a way that it's so good.
Yes.
Like legit. So it's like Green Lantern right there. And I'm like, oh gosh, please make this into a show because I need this so badly. This is so good. So, Brit, tell us about it being an adaptation.
Okay, so like I said, the artwork and everything went viral. In 2017, it was announced that it was supposed to, be adapted into animation for a streaming service called Quibi. However, Quibi, before it even, launched, it was shut down, and he was still in production with 50 Cent and 50 Cent's production. 50 Cent has a show or franchise on Stars called Power. So this at first it felt like the show was buried because Quibi shut down, but in 2022, I guess it was a revival, and to be on BET Plus, which is Black Entertainment, which is Black Entertainment Network. So it is, and that's a streaming service. So of course, animation takes time and to get the voice actors and everything and all of that. But for it to have like still talk within at least 2022, it feels like maybe it has a chance to come out, within the next 5 years. We will hope so.
Here's the other thing. Nowadays, mature takes on superheroes are in.
Right. And again, this isn't anything offensive. If you watch The Boondocks, which this is also inspired by, and he has basically like of course, the anime influence, that kind of thing too. And being that it is DC characters, and it's supposed to be something that is just fun and lighthearted. If you've listened to comedians, how they take certain things and just you just laugh at it. So this is something that definitely can resonate with an audience and bring people into DC heroes.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about some of the characters. So the Green Lantern's character is named Soul, and literally, he has a ring that can make hard light constructs.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I love this. He does part of the Green Lantern thing, except his oath is in brightest. Hang on, I'm trying to find a zoomed in version of the picture. I'll tell you what. I'll do this. All right, hang on. Zoom in. Enhance. In brightest day, night, no two-time trick is beyond my sight. If this, okay, I can't say that word. Don't have my money by the night. Okay. Yeah, that's very. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is great.
Very poetic.
This is great. Oh my God. This is why it's so good. You know what he's parodying, but it's so good. It's like even with a Black Mane, which I love how the urban version of Batman apparently in Black Man, which I'm like, okay, I'll take it. But he's literally like the most hardcore, like Malcolm X like character. If I see even says it's like if Malcolm X meets Batman, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's great. That's great. That is so good. And I like how Sparrow's ability is to get on everyone's nerves. Oh, so it's Damian Wayne.
Technically, yeah.
There you go. I can definitely see that. And we also have his friend Tam, who essentially is Shazam. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And it's kind of like a lot of the art that you're seeing here looks like it's from an animated show. That's how good it is.
Right.
And I'm like, this is why I want this. And then you have, hang on, the Flash named Swift. And then, the Green Arrow character is named Quiver, and he uses coat hangers as arrows. Okay, that's dope.
Yeah, you have Flash. That's kind of like a parody of Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and you have Peaches, who is Black Canary, still screams and stuff. I love that. Oh my gosh, she's being attacked by birds. She goes, "Girl, help!" Oh my gosh. He's got a and then Quiver has a Febreze arrow, hot comb arrow, now and later arrow, and then used cooking grease arrow. Oh God, this is so good. This is so good. All right, chat, what do you guys think of this? Should this be made? Because I think so. This is just so good. And then we have the cheetah character, who instead of being part cheetah is part shark. Name is Sharkita.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's Wandisha's number one rival, or at least she believes herself to be. Yeah, that's good. Oh my gosh. Her special move is called Sharknado Uppercut. I did not notice that until right now. My God, this is great. Oh my gosh, Brit. Wow.
Sharknado.
You always bring me such great stuff, Brit.
Oh, it's so much fun.
So it is astounding how great this stuff is. Then we have Wandisha, who's basically the Wonder. If Beyonce literally became Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and also the fact that she has instead of a invisible jet, she has an invisible surfboard.
Gosh, this is so good. Or like, I also love that. Yes, Mac goes, "This is gold. This is gold." Or like, no, it's even better. It says you just don't mess up her hair or her outfit or start some stuff when Super Wives comes on.
Yeah, instead of Housewives, it's Super Wives.
I'm buying this book. I'm committing to it right now. I'm buying this. Luckily, that we did this episode around the time of my birthday, so I'm going to order this as soon as possible. Oh my gosh. And then Superman is Swallman. Oh my gosh. Also, an out of this world ego. That's his ability. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, he's basically like anything.
A narcissistic ladies' man gets Superman's powers.
Yeah. He's basically like Zeus. Or what some detractors try to say that New 52 Superman was.
No, he wasn't. By the way, do you know what I found? I read a preview of one of the books, and there's a scene where Wandisha goes through Swallman's phone and finds out he's been cheating on her, so she bursts through a wall.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is so great. And then we get to the character that made me laugh the hardest. Mama Swole. What the? Oh, and the Catwoman's name is Vanilla Latte. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh, Brit, you ain't seen nothing yet, because wait till you see this. All right. So then, he even parodied the Star Sapphires.
Yes.
The Thought Core. Again, I echo Mac's sentiment. This is gold.
Yeah. That is hilarious. Like,
they can gyrate while creating a tornado. Oh my God, please make this a show. I need this so badly.
And the thing is, it's so much funnier, and again, lighthearted than pretty much what James Gunn is trying to do, when talking about like the mascara, or of how that is supposed to be with
Or like,
creature.
yeah, I was
Mhm.
about to say in Creature Commandos, we're like the Amazons are all lesbians. Well, that's simplistic.
Yeah, it's not anything like that. It's, again, this is specifically, and supposed to be a parody, is not supposed to be taken serious. With this being your first introduction to the DCU, and you have the mascara basically be a joke, and people take it serious, and stuff like that. That is something that, no, that's just what you shouldn't do. This is the right way of making fun of things.
Yeah, this is why this works. It works if it makes me, a white guy from Florida, laugh like this and go, "I'm buying this book." This is great. So tell us about the SuperWonder relationship of this book.
All right.
Which, by the way,
So,
literally he put them together. He says it right there because Superman and Wonder Woman were together in the comics.
right. So yeah. So basically, that's it. He was very much inspired by the New 52 relationship. It is going on to the stereotype of Superman and Wonder Woman being together, so they are exaggeratedly intimate,
Mm-hmm.
and but it is a entertaining type dynamic within the Justice League, or within the Trill League, because it it does raise, scandals and questions, whether it is Swole main cheating, or it's them having their spats as a couple, or their that they had an adult tape that created a
Mm-hmm.
scandal within the league too. So yeah, it's a very um exaggerated type relationship that echoes in a very um upside down type of way of New 52. You had where in Charles Sewell, when he has that uh the spread by Paulo, and they say, "Oh, this is going to be good on message boards." That
Yeah.
type of talk. How the new two relationship was within the media, and you made them like this celebrity couple. Well, here, Swolman and Wandisha are the celebrity couple that you know does these wild things. He was also inspired by like reality TV, of seeing these hip hop stars on reality doing a lot of drama stuff. So yeah, it's very fun with their relationship. It's something that it would be something to tune in to see what wild things can Swole Man and Wandisha get into.
If this ever happens, Britt, we need to have a segment of the show where we cover Swall League every episode.
It
We
is,
need to do this.
yeah, it is. And it's also about, even though he's making fun of stereotypes, it's still that within, the relationship, Slow Man, he has that ego. But Wandisha, she also um deflates his ego in a sense. He has, even though they go back and forth, they still have that respect for each other. They're still together. And again, even though he's basically kind of like a Zeus character as well, with the
He's Super
many,
Zeus.
yeah, even though that is still that he has a love for her in a twisted kind of way. So again, it's very funny, and it's something that shouldn't be taken serious, but you want to. It's actually entertaining than something going back and forth with how DC, makes things so uh, censored and conservative, and it just feels like when they try to, you know, have this humor in the books or something, it just feels very um, try hard. But again, this and how he's really developed this parody is again something so lighthearted, and it's something that's just so much fun that we
Yeah.
can really invest in even the real characters of DC.
Yeah. Armistad says he still he didn't care, but still called him bro. I don't know what that means, but the the thing about this that I'll say is that yes, the premise is hilarious, but it still comes off as like, okay, this dude, it comes off as like a position of love. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why I'm like, I'll pick this up. This is gonna be this is gonna be really dope. I'm really excited. Please
Right.
make this a show. So DC and Marvel had quite an interesting week. So let's look at the top 50 comics of January. Absolute Wonder Woman is number 3.
Yeah. The absolute
Wait,
books.
suck it, Tom King. You're in number 40. Enjoy it, Mr. 40.
Well, you know what? The thing is about it seems like a lot of books are going like down. So I would say that because other books have went below Wonder Woman, um, it feels like it's still a stagnation, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
even it, you know, at first it was like, I think it was 45 in December or 44, and then going to 40, it felt like it's just because
It's
another
not
book
that much
probably,
of a big thing.
right, and it's not a boost of sales, it's just the fact that another book probably went down further than this, you know, certain book.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's still very stagnant. The main line is just awful. Like DC definitely needs to have a reboot of some sort. And the fact that honestly the relaunch or whatever it was of this big initiative, it started in October. So for the all in. So if you couldn't even last
Yeah,
a
it's still stagnant. That's the funny part because you would expect it if it's this big relaunch of stuff. They're saying, "Oh, we're going all in. We're all in on this." It didn't work.
right. So you have the absolute line that I feel like it's very much like New 52, where, you know, right now it is a big boost because again, DC's main line is very stagnant, is very boring and padding. So right now, this is why the absolute with just 3 books are keeping DC afloat. But this answers the question of why when DC when you know fans say why didn't DC keep post crisis timeline or you know those books when they rebooted for New 52. This is why, because post crisis line could not be held up while they're trying to do the New 52 line. They had to and especially with how bad of a position they were in at that time,
Mm-hmm.
they just couldn't hold 2 lines, and they barely are hanging on to these 2 lines right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like because here's the thing. Let's say in an alternate universe, absolute line. That means that DC would only be in like the top, let's say 20 because of Aquaman. But besides that, oh
Right.
my God, they're not. Besides that, they're New Gods is 30. Okay, 30. But Superman is 38.
Yeah.
That's not good, bro. And wait, Batman is not even in here. Besides, like Batman and Robin and a few like Batman adjacent books. Oh my God. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I see Batman. 35 and Detective is 33. Oh man, that's bad. That is really bad.
And Batman, Superman World's Finest, 49. I mean, with New 52's Batman and Superman, that stayed within the top 30, with until DC, of course, started, with New 52, they were getting rid of the tagline and then getting rid of the whole line itself. But yeah, that was when sales stayed up. But now it seems like this is why DC reboots or relaunches every 2 years, because these books are not staying afloat at all.
Yeah, well, they would if DC actually check their creators and stuff. Because I heard from from Stephanie Williams that like, or no, Leah Williams, that like she loves DC because they don't really care about continuity. You can do whatever you want there.
Which is,
Or
I
it's like,
mean,
so she's writing the current Power Girl book, and when she came onto the book, she legit reached out and said, "Okay, so what book should I read?" So I'm like caught up on the continuity of the character, and said, "Oh, don't worry about that. Just do whatever you want to do."
and that is because DC's editorial, they are so, well, they put their own selves in a corner, because with trying to force post-crisis back with New 52, these characters, especially Superman and Wonder Woman, they are definitely in, you don't know what's canon or not in Scott Snyder's, that whole tagline of everything is canon, you know, yeah,
Okay, which
that
origin?
yeah, that didn't work out. So now you are at a point where, yeah, it doesn't matter, because everything will contradict itself. If you are going with post-crisis, Steve is supposed to be an old man married to Etta.
Yeah,
um,
he ain't dating Diana. He never dated her in Post Crisis.
right. Or or even Diana being as old as dinosaurs. She was not. She was present day.
There's a
So,
reason why most fans like the Post Crisis Wonder Woman, and I'm like, I have some problems with it, but yeah, I kind of agree with them.
right. Superman, if you want him to be post-crisis, John he shouldn't exist.
Hmm.
Just period. He just shouldn't. If you wanted him to have a son or something, it should have been Chris, you know, uh, yeah,
Chris
it should have
Kent.
been Chris Kent. Uh, I would say Batman and the Green Lantern Corp is the only,
Just
or
leave it.
Lantern Corp. Yeah, it was the only thing that was salvageable. But
Yeah, the thing is, the problem with the Green Lantern and Batman, they could have kept it. The problem is they expected us to believe that Batman could have 5 Robins in 5 years. If they had made it 10 years, yes, that's believable. Then with Green Lantern, they tried to make us believe that Blackest Night and Brightest Day and all that stuff had happened. But it's like the characters that were pretty key in Blackest Night haven't been introduced yet in the new 52. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Like Blackest Night or the Sinestro Corps war happened. If they had said only the space events happen, like the parts of the Green Lantern story that take place specifically in space, that'd be one thing. But they also referenced Earth, and I'm like, hmm.
yeah,
That,
so
that
that's
doesn't really work. Besides that, yeah, you could keep most of the Green Lantern stuff because a lot of the big important stuff is in space.
yeah, that's pretty much why. Again, they can't reference anything in continuity. Um, I mean, they could take advantage of that and make like past books. They can have even a Superman and Wonder Woman past book, like World's Finest. Um, they can have, you know, not so much as clean it up, but in a sense, if you are going to tell the early days of any character, you know, you might as well just is basically just go by how World's Finest is. And Mark Wade, he has his ways, but he stands basically on his own ground, and he's basically like, He doesn't want to be confined to continuity, so that is why he prefers, having his books set in the past. And it is much easier to tell the stories with.
Yeah, and you know what? If he works good with that, all right, that's fine. But it's like then you get to like stuff like this where it's like a lot of the stuff again when it gets stagnant, when sales are this bad and they've been consistently going down like this, at what point does DC decide, okay, time for a change? Something has got to change because we're getting our asses kicked here, and the fact that our alternate continuity that's supposed to be like it's not right is dramatically outselling everything else.
Yeah.
But so Brit, how does it feel knowing Absolute Wonder Woman has consistently been in the top 5 since it debuted?
Honestly, that is really good. And it shows, first of all, it shows that when you have at least something interesting and a writer who cares for Diana, Wonder Woman's book can maintain. That is something that I think a lot of fans that aren't her fans, they want to discredit her character, but we've seen that her character is popular. She just needs that a caretaker or caretakers who can really just give her that respect. And she will be a top selling, whether the character overall, but her books will sell more. Having a movie and cartoon, everything. We saw that even in Tomorrowverse with Earth 2 Wonder Woman, how she was prominent in that. And she, with Craig saying that he was a fan of Wonder Woman. That's what we need. We need
Yes.
more Wonder Woman fans taking care of the character.
Exactly, because again, and that's why I say I have my issues with the Tomorrowverse, particularly the Green Lantern movie. But when it relates to Wonder Woman, this was the first time that like she was a focus and B not used at any point was she ever used as a like mouthpiece. And also, Britt, here's how it relates to us as SuperWonder fans. She's dating Superman or married to him, as far as we know. And she was still like the badass that we know her to be. She wasn't like just Superman's girlfriend.
Exactly.
Lois, however,
I
had to.
Right.
You know me, Britt. I'm a petty a-hole.
Right. Yeah, her character, Lois's, in Tomorrowverse, it was surrounded or, revolved around Superman. Even Earth 2, Lois, her only mention was that she was married to Superman and died of old age.
The best way to reference Lois. Yeah, that was a thing that happened in the past. We're beyond that now. Yes, I agree, brother. Date the Amazon, particularly when DC calls the one that's dating Lois Superboy.
Right.
I can't believe that. I got screenshots of that because I'm saving that forever. That is just, it's almost like they go, you'll become Superman until you date an Amazon. Speaking of Superman, but yeah, go. But all right, absolute Superman. So can I say he's a badass in this? Like, first off, the cape is still amazing. And second off, he beats the crap out of Peacemakers, which I will always pay money to watch Peacemakers get torn apart because I freaking hate them because of James Gunn. But it's like, I just adore seeing because he shows up and then they're all like, oh no, it's Superman. And he goes, and I love when he goes, that's him, all right. Remember me, pal? And Superman just goes, no. And he just frost breaths them. I love that. And then, so this book brings in Jimmy. This is one of the reasons why I think the Absolute books have been doing so well. And we talked about this last week with Absolute Wonder Woman, I believe. So Absolute Wonder Woman brings in Etta Candy. They're literally bringing in all the characters that we want to be in these books. And here's the thing. with Lois and Steve, they can't deliberately exclude them because they do serve a role in there. But it's like Etta Candy and Jimmy is also like kind of like he's a little bit more of a like freedom fighter. That's actually an interesting way to go with this. And it's just it's really interesting the way that it just and I like how they're emphasizing Superman's inspirational qualities.
Right. That is something that you need for Superman, and we talked about this, is that he can't be spoon fed and be the inspiration. We have to see him struggle, and actually be the man of the people, the champion of the oppressed, this embodiment of the everyday man, but on an extraordinary level. Um, and this is the right way to go. Um, Very much how New 52 was, and then with absolute, Cal, he is. It seems like he did have some sort of, and we'll see that in later issues, it seems, with Smallville, but to see that Krypton is finally given respect and emphasized on, and his suit is a suit that his mom made it, yeah, but it was his Kryptonian mother that made it.
Yeah. By the way, a critique of this book is that some people are like, why does it spend so much time on Krypton? A lot of it is coming from post-crisis Superman fans.
Right, that is, yeah,
Eh.
the post-crisis status quo and everything like that has severely damaged the character
Well, you know what?
because,
At least this guy is outselling even post-crisis Superman now. So there you
right,
go.
right, and post-crisis Superman, I mean, he, I guess, was good for his time, but in 2025, no, it's a no for me because the character is very stagnant and very much set in this mindset of Krypton is evil or whatever, and even with using the powers and wearing the crest and everything like that, he just has this ungrateful type attitude and very self-hating, not very cultured type attitude about his character, where we had New 52 Superman who had survivor's guilt, who, was very much in tune with both being with honoring Krypton and Smallville. You know, that's what we need, more balance of the character. And he still had that loneliness. With post crisis, he's very much spoon fed. He feels like he's only a Kent. He names his son John Samuel only because he feels that is fulfilling that role of him only being human. The mental gymnastics, the um, only, basically, I need to be with a regular human. Well, Diana is human, so I wouldn't say that. Regular mortal
Yes, she
woman,
is.
a an American at that, to feel accepted and to feel like he's human in a sense of, just that society acceptance. And that is just something that I don't agree with. In the year 2025 is very offensive. So, yeah, Superman needs to change. Mainline Superman needs to change.
And
And
remember, Britt, the post-crisis Superman status quo was started by someone that thought immigrants were ungrateful.
yes, so for any post-crisis fans, you can like the iteration. However, take note of basically the background of the character, though, and his motivation and his purpose. If you agree with that, I mean, hey, that's what you agree with. However, you know, it is still the know that it's problematic in a sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick to the Grant Morrison Action Comics one that was being the champion of the oppressed and dated Wonder Woman. Yeah, I'll stick with that one. Speaking of Super Wonder, as a matter of fact, so CBR screwed the pooch again. Imagine my shock.
Right. So they had an article that, of course, every blue moon or whatever, they have articles about Clark and Diana's relationship. Very much clickbait, rage bait, and, they admit it, within the article that Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship, it draws conversation. Whether it's good conversation or bad, or fans going back and forth, it's still conversation. So within this article, they talked about, you know, their friendship and the romance and how they have a lot in common, how they are connected and everything. But still, with it felt like after every other paragraph or so, they still had to say, but it isn't as good because of the traditional, love interest and status quo, and it's taken away from Lois and Steve. Honestly, if you were going to say an article about a relationship, that's not really explaining Clark and Diana's relationship. Clark and Diana's relationship has nothing to do with Lois and Steve.
Mm-hmm.
When they do these, articles, which aren't many of the other relationships, they don't bring up anything else. But every time they have to, shoehorn in about Lois and Steve, and it's like, what's the purpose? You know, um, if anything, it just feels like Clark and Diana have a better relationship, and the only reason why you're bringing up Lois and Steve is not to forget them, but is that you have to establish that they are by default, and that's it. That's the only thing that goes for them. Um, and the fact that this article also says basically Clark and Diana's relationship brings up high stakes and um like the can bring up like conflict that's unpredictable. And it's
Wait,
like, okay,
so I thought Super Wonder didn't have high stakes.
right. So they complain about it. It's a very
You're
backwards.
complaining about good storytelling?
Right. It's very backwards how anything else that is praised by other, relationships, they bash it with Clark and Diana. And we see that with Lois having powers, how post-crisis Superman fans, Lois fans, they are trying to make this seem like, oh, they are a power couple now, that Lois is his equal because she has powers. But with Clark and Diana, you call it eugenics, or you say, they want to take over the world like injustice or something. You know, it's a very we see the double standard, and it shows um, how pretty much there's not really a legitimate complaint about Clark and Diana's relationship. Again, the article, it starts off, you know, saying the right things, but it's still they have to talk about, even though this makes sense and is basically perfect, with its flaws, it's still, you know, being brought down by traditional relationships. And that's just so limiting to me.
If anything, again, like you've said many times in the show, Superman with Lois has zero stakes because you know he's going to save her. So I'm like, why do I? Particularly now that she has superpowers. So you took a relationship that already didn't have any stakes. You gave her less than zero stakes.
Right. And
Anyway, so
and you
yeah,
also
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
and you also with I would say with Lois having powers, her the motivation for her having powers is really, it's about Clark, and it's her supposedly having PTSD over him being killed by Doomsday, which, I mean, I get, but at the same time, she doesn't have her own motivation. It's still revolving around Clark. If you want to have them be like this sort of power couple or whatever, Lois needs to have her own like story, and that's not really showing it. And even with Williamson, he said that as well, is that she can now understand Clark being a superhero. She can now do something within the world. So basically, you're saying with her being a reporter, she wasn't really doing anything. And yeah, we saw that as readers because she's reporting on Superman. She's not really doing anything uh, that doesn't benefit the world. It might benefit Metropolis, but or herself, but it's not anything actually impactful within the world. And how Williamson is also writing it is very much her being a sidekick than an equal.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to, all right, let's talk about this. The Wonder Woman game is in trouble. So we talked about this on Comics League Dark, and Talati and I came to the determination. Unfortunately, I don't think this game is coming out.
Yeah, I don't either. Honestly at first when with it taking so long and then to say it relaunched, I at first
Not only that, Brit,
rebooted.
they also came out and said so that trailer that they released at at a game conference, that was the only work that was done on the game.
Wow, that so I honestly feel like if with the fact that James Gunn torpedoed and basically kneecapped everything that was in development before he came aboard, uh, with I wasn't surprised that this game, ended up being in trouble. And I've even told you this that I think that this game would um if it is some type of changes, it would connect to James Gunn DCU. Um, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised
Mhm.
if we hear that would be the choice made for the game. And it's
Mhm.
the fact that James Gunn is basically like he says that he has nothing to do with comics, but yet we see that Peacemaker and Holland, I think that was in
Mhm.
Peacemaker, and other
Jennifer Holland,
characters.
yeah.
Um, those characters are coming within comics. Maybe it's not James, Gunn directly, but there is some synergy going on. And with Wonder Woman not having anything in development as priority, this was the only thing that Wonder Woman fans and just Wonder Woman had going as something, to anticipate because he canceled Wonder Woman 3. Um, Even though he said they're trying to work on a Wonder Woman animation, again, that is
Yeah,
something,
yeah, Fat Chan. He tells a lot
yeah,
of people a lot of stuff.
yeah, you know. So with this video game, I definitely think that if they don't have anything else, I would think that they would probably try to connect this to DCU and have it more open to the wider DCU and maybe in the perspective of Diana.
And which means it's going to be really stupid because a Wonder Woman Twitter account that follows me and I follow him brought up how sad would it be if Diana's introduction, yeah, so by Randy says Lois is a Mary Sue, let's call it for what it is. Yes, she is. But anyway, so how sad would it be that Wonder Woman's intro is going to be in a game that the general audience is not going to play? So
Yeah,
that's not going to work.
yeah. I mean, again, this video games animation takes time,
Hmm.
but for them to announce this and now to know that the only thing that they had was the trailer and I mean, WB has wasted a lot of money. And for this game to already cost, that much, that is the budget of pretty much animation and the budget for one of the movies that James Gunn has greenlit already.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a very complicated type situation for Wonder Woman as a character. And not only did they kneecap, Wonder Woman, but also Flash and Constantine.
And
You know,
Flash, it was just because the Flash movie underperformed.
and you know what? Honestly, a Flash video game and just because the movie flopped doesn't mean that the character is a flop.
Well,
It
not only that, Brit, we literally have a TV show that went on for 10 years that people loved.
exactly. So I honestly just think that WB is very reactionary. How they were reacted to DCEU and they just cut things off. So again, to cut off a Flash, first of all, it's kind of funny that Superman, like the Superman fans say how he's the number one superhero, and yeah, that's true of that. His creation is number one. However, as far as marketability and with video gaming and
It's Batman.
yeah, and with anything else, I would say that the Boy Scout type, spoon fed type thing, that's not very interesting to the general audience. So to have a little edge, to have a little something, uh, you know, the character just didn't have that going for him. So, but you do have Flash that had a successful show. You do have Wonder Woman that had, regardless of 1984, the plot, being a mess, it still was successful for at least HBO Max, and still Wonder Woman was a popular character um, within, DCEU. And then Batman is Batman. So, like I said, for these characters to just having to go through hoops to get something off the ground for your most prominent female character is just ridiculous.
Yeah, she is the most iconic female DC superhero. She's a third member of the Trinity, even though that's just like not that big of a title, or like even though that the title Trinity is kind of it's the creation of like her demon spawn daughter, and it's also like, yes, thank you. It's also not like, what's the word? It's also not really as far back as people think it is. But Randy says the game just needs to be good. Uh, if Celebrate can play a success, so can Wonder Woman. But here's the difference: the company doesn't have faith in Wonder Woman. Otherwise, they would prioritize this game.
Which honestly, I still don't understand why they don't have faith in her when again she has had success, and more success than Superman, really.
Yeah, it's probably because WB tends to be reactionary whenever something fails. Because Wonder Woman 1984 failed. I know it's not fair to the character because she had one fantastic movie, but the way WB thinks, that they're very reactionary with that.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. I mean, Superman had Superman Returns, and it didn't stop them from trying to push the
Wait, we
character.
had Superman
So
4.
that too. So, and everything else that Superman has had that has not met expectations. Wonder Woman hasn't had that luxury of having many adaptations. So again, you can't really judge the character on one adaptation that um, wasn't good. However, again, it was a success in a sense of HBO Max, and I mean they fast tracked Wonder Woman 3. They also gave bonuses to Gal and Patty. So it wouldn't have been that bad. especially if she were to course correct to have Wonder Woman 3 present day and also
That's what she
integrate,
wanted to do.
right, and integrate other the Justice League characters. So yeah, it would have worked. But again, you kneecapping it at first chance and being reactionary, and then James Gunn, with his C-lister Z-list type obsession, instead of having your A-listers established first, is really hurting um DC's image and confusing things.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the fact that she's going to be, if she's in Paradise Lost at all, it's going to be a cameo in the last episode of her own show.
Right.
I'm like, that's a problem. That's a very big problem. But then again, for the company that doesn't respect Wonder Woman and has been clear by their actions that they don't, I mean, case in point, Tom King is writing her book. It's really hard being a Wonder Woman fan, isn't it, Brit?
It is. It very much is. I mean, I love the character, and despite everything that she's going through, with DC's, the comics part of with King or the video game or lack of movies, but the character herself is she's still an inspiration and fun to talk about, fun to create, Shelterverse with and stuff like that. But yeah, it would be better if we had solid, something solid for her as a character because it, she needs it and deserves it as a character.
Yeah, because I've long said if the game was successful enough, it could be the type of PR boost that Diana sorely needs as a character, but we'll never know at this point. But anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it. We came in at 2 hours and 36 seconds, Brit, minutes, Brit. So there you go. So not quite 5 hours. We'll get there one day.
One day.
So, Brit, what stories regale us with the tales that you are preparing to tell?
All right. So I've already sent you chapter 3 that you
Yeah.
have to read through and edit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I also have more one shots that I've finishing up that are more in. It's a toss between. I would say it would be uploaded into either tonight and have like this feel of awakens,
Mm-hmm.
or it will be that, you know, sweetest something special type story. So I'm going back and forth with those. And then, of course, updating um, the ancient Greece story. We have Olympia's story coming up with chapter 1 of right now, just the overview of how we're going to, set up everything. But I can't wait for us to share that because, again, that story is, when we talk about it, it's just trying to one up each other of who's going to send the cat gif next. And the more we put details in it, this story is also with exploring Clark and Diana's relationship and how it's very different from, what we are used to. And also, yeah, just finishing those stories that I have neglected. Twist of Fate, also the last chapter. I've decided on how I want to end it. So that is what I'm working on with that as well. So yeah.
Heck yeah. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. Steve Trevor, Steve Never. She belongs to General Zod. He belongs 6 feet in the ground. Zois and Max about for life. I will see you later. Bye-bye.